Hey guys, Mentors video 3. So the gas station job's over, and what am I going to do next? So, I'm not a guy that sat around waiting for things to come to me. So I start, talking to me. Hey. Well, my stepfather's got an aunt that she works on a throughway, and she said I'm about to turn 16. I'm like a week away from turning 16. So she says to me, when you turn 16, I can get you a job as a dishwasher on the throughway, which is like the turnpike in New York. So they had rest areas back then, and like they have today, but back then it was one restaurant, big, gigantic cafeteria style. You came into the throughway stop, hundreds of people a day, but you came into a cafeteria. And so I was the dishwasher. So she hired me at 16 as the dishwasher, and as I've stated in videos previously, cook breaks his leg, I become the cook. So once again, at this point, the dark side, I'm almost completely there at this point. The dark side is easy money. So if you're playing Monopoly and the goal is to make money, the dark side is the easiest money to make. Okay? The problem with it is it's not real. The money isn't real. You can't do anything with it. You can't go buy a house. You can't go buy a brand new car because they're going to want to know where the money came from. So the money from the dark side also spends like water because you didn't do anything to make it. You just did what you did on the dark side to get it. I had learned at my last job how to steal from work. Now, I come by this naturally, okay? Al Klein, stepfather number 3. This man was basically a super honest man. I mean, he was a good guy. I mean, he was a asshole, and he did horrific things to me. But he wasn't the type, he didn't take advantage of people. He didn't cheat people. He didn't lie. He didn't steal. He didn't do those types of things. He was an old school guy. But for some reason, this man decided that everything that his employer had inside the building that he worked, and he worked in a machine shop for his whole life. Different machine shop, but this was a big one. This was a union job. He worked in this big factory machine shop where they made ball bearings. Al Klein thought nothing of bringing anything home from work that wasn't tied down. I mean, seriously, there's a Johnny Cash song. It's great. It's where this guy works at Cadillac factory and he brings home a Cadillac one piece at a time. That was Al Klein. So I had grown up thinking that stealing from work was a normal thing. Literally thought that that's what you're supposed to. My dad did it, My dad did it all the time. And he was this stand-up guy, always teaching me, always trying to break my will. And, well, whatever. So the guy steals everything from work. So, long story short, they got a whole freaking thing, and I'm out there with one of the other cooks one day, and he says to me, they don't inventory this. I take some pies once in a while home. Ding, 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 ding. So, long story short, obviously, I create a side business where I'm selling food out of the cooler. So that job's gone. At the same time, now I'm 16. So I haven't really been going to school. I think the only time I ever went was after the truants, would show up, and then I would go for a couple of days. And I wasn't even at this point. I'd already left home. I left home before my 16th birthday. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it anymore. I had to go, and I had the money to go live on my own, so I did. So at this point, when I say I went and lived on my own, I didn't do that. I met a chick and fell in love and started having sex consistently, and that was it. I was done. Now I knew what I wanted to do with my money. So we end up living together, and that goes exactly how you would think it went. She got pregnant, and we had to take off. And we ended up going to a place called Auburn, New York. And at that point, I lived outside of Syracuse. So we didn't we didn't know how anything was to do. Our parents were freaking out and stuff. So we go to social services and get kind of help. And they're very helpful. They really were. Our parents shot that down quick, but they were really helpful and stuff. But long story short, at the time, I'm a fish out of water. Okay, this is a dude who's been a feral animal his whole life and only taking care of himself to survive. And now I've got a girl and she's pregnant, and I'm losing this shit. So long story short, we're living in an apartment in Auburn, and I meet this guy. I go to this pool hall. Back then, I liked to play pool. It was one of the ways I made money. So, and I mean, when I say I played pool, and I didn't go to pool halls, okay? Because first of all, everybody in pool hall knows how to play pool. A really hard game to play in a pool hall too, because tables are so much bigger. Mine was arcades and bars. Okay, I for a while there, and I only did this for probably a year. I would play 4 or 5 hours a day, and then go to work, and then go make money on the side playing pool against grown men. They just couldn't believe that a kid, this 16-year-old kid, could whoop their ass in a bar. Back then, you could get in a bar when you were 16. It wasn't. Drinking age was 18, and if you were 6'3", I was probably 6'3" back then, 6'2", 6'3", and yeah, no white kid, they let you in. So I'd go in and hustle. So I go into the back then they'd set up arcades, they'd sell pizza, there'd be pool tables. It was where kids went, teenagers went, young kids went. So I start hanging out there, and I meet the owner, and this man, this is just something I got because it's popped into my head. This is literally the ugliest man I've ever met in my entire life. Like, seriously. Like, the ugliest man I have ever seen. Huge buck teeth. Just ugly, dude. Brilliant. That's a curse in life, okay? If you're brilliant and you're hideous, it's got to be horrible to be brilliant and have no one take you serious because of your outside appearance. Stephen Hawkins figured that out by going to college. No one would have listened to Stephen Hawkins if he wasn't in the academic world. Like, none of us would have sat in a boardroom and that just doesn't, no, it doesn't work. So this dude's hideous. But man, this dude's a college Monopoly player. He's a dark side player, okay? There's two ways to play Monopoly. You can play in the gray, or you can play in the black. People play in the black, they're idiots. They're the worst. They're the most dangerous. They have no long-term goals. They're like crackheads. Okay, they're just burn. Every Monopoly player playing in the black cheats. They just cheat. I'm not saying that the rest of us don't cheat, but they don't play without cheating. Okay, but man, did he know how to work people? Holy crap, man. He's Svengali. This is a perfect reason why he did what he did. He was probably 30 at the time, and he had a gigantic collection of 15 to 20-year-olds that worshipped the ground he walked on. Even if he was the ugliest dude you ever met in your whole life. He had money. He had an arcade. He had a pizza restaurant. He was super cool. All of that stuff. I mean, everything you wanted to be around if you were a young man, and he would drink with you, he'd smoke with you, all that kind of stuff. He was the coolest guy in the world. But he always had an agenda, and the agenda was, how am I going to get paid? In every conversation this man had was transactional. So that's all. I mean, literally, he was a predator. He woke up every morning and dressed up to play Monopoly and went out and ate up every person that had never heard of the game. Okay? He didn't even have to go out. And that's the other thing, too. He didn't go after players because he couldn't hang. And I'd be honest with you, it's because he was ugly. Literally. If he'd have been even normal looking, he could have played. But he was so ugly that they wouldn't let him in the room. It's weird, okay? It's Good Old Boys. It's made by men. It's full of testosterone. It's full of men over 6 foot tall that have high IQs and are generally very good looking and charismatic. I didn't make these rules. I didn't set the genetics of how this all works, and how we view the physical specimen and the hierarchy of our species, but we do. Just like they do in every other animal world. You know, the prettiest lion gets the most lionesses. The prettiest man gets the most women. If he's got any kind of rap. That's just the way it is. So, he taught me how to maximize people. How to get people to do as much for you as you possibly can for free. So, I'll give you an example. The kids, and I was one of them. There's only like 3 of us, really. Not all the other parents, they're not fun. None of us are, I mean, at this point, I gotta be honest with you, I'm a juvenile delinquent. I am a serious juvenile delinquent. Everyone I hang out with is a juvenile delinquent. There's no respectable people in my life at this point. You know, they're all hustlers. Everybody's a hustler. Everybody's, you know, chasing around trying to figure out how to play Monopoly. So, he was doing everything. Like, I'll tell you what, you know, just not even giving us anything, like a slice of pizza. A slice of pizza and a soda and maybe a quarter for the pinball machine. We're sweeping floors, stocking shelves, cooking, making pizzas, all that kind of stuff. And that's when I learned that no matter what you had going against you, okay, if you were ugly, no matter what, if you studied people and how to make people do what you wanted to do without them realizing that's what you're doing. And he was my mentor number 3. And he didn't, that's not when he actually became my mentor. But I studied this guy, and I studied how he went about making people do what he wanted to do for him and thinking it's their idea. His name was Doug. He popped back into my life 3 years later when I was working at Sambo's. And he came in and he said, I hadn't seen him in 3 years. He came in, he said, I heard you work here. He goes, I have a pizza restaurant and I need a partner and I want it to be you and I want you to come in and I want you to run the pizza shop and own the place with me. And I thought, wow. Somebody, even though he's the ugliest dude in the world, has invited me to play Monopoly. Someone's invited me to the game. And that was my first invitation to the game. And it was horrible. It was literally horrible. This dude dumped the company on me that there was 0 way for it to make money. Like, literally. He just needed somebody to make enough money until the lease was paid off so that he could close the company. And it wasn't even about, like, breaking even. It was just about whatever amount of money I could bring in to keep the doors open. Like if I brought in $1,000 and his outlay was $1,500, he only had to come out of pocket $500, and my stupid ass is working for free. Okay, now. I went on to make a ton of money in this pizza restaurant. I hated every minute of the pizza restaurant. It was open 6 days a week from 11 in the morning till 3 in the morning. It was attached, like right attached to a biker bar. So you had to be open all the time for these lunatic bikers. It was horrible. Like, literally, I worked myself to death. I mean, I got up at 10:30 in the morning. I opened at 11. I stayed to 3. I got home at 3:30. I slept till 10:30. I got up. I did this for 8 solid months. Now, 2 months into it, I figured out how to make money. And I gave him enough money every month to pay off the bills. Not because of the pizza. I'm not selling pizza. I mean, I'm trying everything. What do I know? I mean, I'm flyers, talking, bar, all that stuff. They're buying pizza, but if you're going to own a pizza restaurant, you got to understand, man. You don't get it. You think you all like are great cooks, but I want you to understand the volume that you have to produce to make any money. So back then, a pizza sold for $5. And it cost $1. You made $4 on every pizza. The dollar included like rent and stuff like that, if you sold enough. Okay, so at $5 a pizza, you have to sell 100 pizzas to make $400. 100 every day. Just to make $400 a day, you're open 6 days a week, it's $2,400, okay? It's $10,000 a month. It's $120,000 a year. You're working 90 hours a week for $120,000 a year if you've achieved the point where you sell 100 pizzas a day. I'm not selling 100 pizzas. I'm lucky if I'm selling 20 pizzas a day, 15 pizzas. I had some subs. I had a sub shop. There was subs there too. So I sold a few of those, but not, and like nothing. So at the same time, I had we'll call it oregano. I had an oregano side business. And one of these days I'm going to do a video on that, because that was an insanely successful business for me for very, very many years. And it helped me build every other company I had from that point forward. So people are coming by the pizza shop to strictly buy oregano. That's why they're not even buying pizza. They're stopping by and hanging out with me and maybe buying a soda and buying their oregano and leaving. So I come up with a $20 pizza. And the $20 pizza was a bag of oregano and a $5 pizza. And I started selling pizza like I was going out of fucking style, man. Like literally, I was moving. Because, oh, I forgot this part. I delivered. So we start moving. We're moving, I don't know, 60, 70 pizzas. We're not moving 100. Because I had like nobody else is buying pizza. The only reason they're buying pizza is because they're buying oregano. So, I do this for about 6 months. And the lease was up. And I knew the lease was up. Like the next month, the lease was up. And by that time, I'd also built one hell of an oregano business. I mean, a very successful oregano business. So that was huge. that literally did not need a pizza attached to it to be successful. So a month before the lease was up, I left everything on the desk and I left. And that's and I went on. I mean, and to be honest with you, Doug and I, we never spoke again. Like I left the keys and we never saw each other or spoke again. But we didn't speak after about 6 weeks of me taking on the position, because he knew at that point that I figured out how he screwed me. And that's the carrot, okay? And later on, I'm going to teach you all about the carrot. And it's the most effective tool. If you give someone ownership, and I mean 5% of your company, one of your employees, okay, you will own them, literally own them. And 5% of profit, if I'm the guy in charge of the bank, the profit is what I say the profit is. That's the rules of monopoly, okay? So, I left. I never saw him again. And mentor number 3 taught me, read the fine print. Know what you're getting into when somebody offers you a partnership in a business, okay? What that's going to look like in the long run, all right? That's mentor number 3. Wait till we get to mentor number 4. See ya.